Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this session of Litfestx. We are joined by Dr. Barbara Preitler from Austria. She works as a trauma therapist and is a supervisor of psychotherapists and social workers. She is a lecturer at the University of Klagenfurt in Austria, and her main areas of research are psychotraumatology, trauma, and grief and psychological aspects of international development cooperation. Dr. Preitler has published numerous articles and has also developed courses on trauma counseling in Austria and Sri Lanka. Her latest book, Grief and Disappearance, is one of the very few studies about the impact of disappearance of people and the psychological and therapeutic interventions required for grieving relatives and friends. Dr. Preitler, good to have you on Litfestx. Welcome to our season.
Thank you very much for invitation.
So, this is clearly a very less talked about subject, Dr. Preitler, on the differences between death and disappearance. But clearly both are a loss for the family or, friends, other relatives. What has been your research and what are the key areas which you find are of major importance when we talk about death versus disappearance?
Yes, of course, I understand from my clients that that is a very bad thing, and of course disappearance is even in some ways worse, as we don't have an evidence. We have nothing what shows us what really has happened. So there's nobody where I have to understand that the loss is forever. So I think that's the first point, the evidence and not to have the evidence, which means also all cultures have very clear norms, forms, rituals, what has to be done if a person died, but we have rarely something when a person disappears. Normally there's nothing for the families when their disappearance happens. And if it even happens in a political context or in a context of war, it might be that there's no social support from the neighborhood, from the relatives. It might be even that people go away from you in such a situation, what is really, really tough. So, yeah, I think it's one of the most important things we have.
Right. Of late, as you know, with the growing instances of terrorism, and of course we have several parts of the world which are still, facing war and extreme violence. What do you think at a larger level, disappearance? How are people dealing with disappearance?
When I started my research, I was just searching for cases, and it was for me very astonishing how often and how many people in this world are suffering from this kind of violation, crime, human rights violation. And I was astonished how less work is done on the psychological impact. But I was also collecting examples from all over the world how people deal with it, and it's amazing how many different forms you can find. Like, for example, the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo in Argentina, who were the first group of mothers who came together to search for their disappeared children, which is a role model for many, many other organizations around the world. Or we find groups of relatives who come together who ask for examination, especially if it happened several years ago and there's some knowledge about where the bodies and remains might be. So in this way, also a lot of art we can see all over the world for dealing with disappearance. Right. So just a few examples.
You have also spoken about the various rituals and both physical and symbolical, and how they can help for the ones who are left behind to come to terms with the loss. Tell us a little about what your research has indicated there.
I think there are very few things we can say about all people in the world, all culture in the world. And there, one thing is that we have rituals, what has to be done when a person dies in your community. And I think it's very, very important for all of us to have this kind of rituals and to understand this kind of rituals, because they help a lot to say goodbye, to allow yourself to mourn. So I think it's very often this allowance to mourn. In a case of disappearance, of course, we don't have this evidence, and so it's very hard to go to it. And there are very few cultures in the world who also have rituals for disappearance. And one people from Mizoram in northeastern India have told me. So if there somebody disappears, going to the jungle, not coming back, after a particular time of the search, they will do a morning ritual with some trees trunk, bananas trunk, and perform the ritual like they would have done with the case body. I think that's quite amazing, and maybe it's something we can learn in other societies also. Because I think, especially immediately after the person disappears, it's very important that people have some support, and we have to be on their side in this situation. Also, as somebody from outside, as a psychologist, as a psychotherapist, but even if I'm a neighbor, a friend of the person, I cannot say what has happened. We don't know it in the same way. We don't know what has happened. So we have to go with the knowledge, with the time of the person. And so in case this person is coming to a point where they maybe, then we have to be these persons who support them, and then it might be the right time for doing some rituals. This might be in the religious context the person lives, so with some prayers, with the support of some priests of the community, or even it might be that we need some totally new rituals also.
Right. So, when we talk about death versus disappearance, I guess one of the key areas would be an element of hope in one case and an element of closure in the other case. So tell us how, in your research, you have seen both of these being treated differently.
Yeah, I think especially then when there are news coming up, when this news might be even after many, many years, people will go back to the hope that they will find their relatives. And sometimes they clearly find them, but much more often we see that there is no message at all. So I think it's very important that they have somewhere from outside somebody who helped them to understand that it might be over forever. Sometimes it needs that I, as a psychotherapist, are the first one who speak it out. So, for example, if it comes, I don't know, and it's so long, that I am the person who says, do you think now that he or she has died? That I use the word first before they can use it, because otherwise they will understand it more, that they even give the social death to their loved person. And when this happens, it might be time to do some rituals also. And these rituals also in a way, maybe not to accept the dead in this moment, but in this moment to mourn for the lost time, that we didn't have such a long time together at the moment, as a first step. Right. So and later on it might happen Yeah, that there's more and more acceptance. But what's also very important is uh, if my clients come and they say somebody in the family has disappeared, I ask as many information as possible about this person. What is the name of the person? How he looked like? What was her profession? So that the person with the whole past story comes to the room. Even if we don't know what is going on with the person in the present time, we don't know what is in the future, but we know the past was real, and this person really has been a close person to the client.
Right. You also mention of several phases uh,
Yeah.
that use to deal with loss. And so take us through those phases and how you think they are applicable in even modern times.
Of course, nearly all theories about grief and mourning process are speaking about these phases. That let's say with Bowlby, we start with the phase of shock, where we don't understand what happened, or where we don't want to understand what we have heard, what has happened. It will go to the phase where we are in great sorrow, where we search for the loved one, and all these models of grief show us when we are able to go through it. At the end, we will have the phase of integration, what means I could accept that the relationship is over in this world forever. So this will not nothing will come in this life again in this relationship, but the whole memory, all these good things I had together with the person belong for me forever. So this is one gift we have in life, that these good memories is something nobody can take away from us. So the life in future will go on without the loved person, but the memory of the person whom I loved and whom I have lost will be with me for the rest of my life. And it might be that even with these memories, I will make life decisions now, even if the person has died, has gone several years ago. This is the normal mourning process. If we see it in these people who have relatives who disappeared, it will take a much longer period of time. And I used to say also it is a hidden mourning process. So this means not now, or it will take years, yeah. And there's a much longer phase of searching, or a much longer phase of being in hope that the person comes back. And it might be that I already have accepted to some extent, but then some news come up and I go back to this phase of hope. But in being with clients for quite some time, I realized that very often a hidden mourning process happens. There it's good if some rituals can support them, and what is very important that somebody is on the side of these people who help them in this difficult period in their life.
Right. You know, Dr. Preitler, how has your research and work affected your own sort of thinking and your own mindset, because clearly you're having to deal with difficult conversations when you do this research. How has this affected your own mindset?
Uh, of course, I think on one side it's still very pathetic, and very often I also feel very helpless in these situations, because we want to give answers and there are no answers we can give, because I also don't know what has happened. I have no theoretical background in the way what are the phases of disappearance, or only what I have told you before. But I think it's so important to be on the side of people, to stay with them. And I have learned when I am helpless in such a situation, it's not important that I am the clever academic person. It's much more important that I just be with the people. And if I have nothing to say, I sometimes even say I have nothing to say at the moment. So what really has changed my mindset is that I think it's very, very important to be on the side of people who are so much in desperation and need. And I also learned that rituals are very important. And if there are no rituals which my culture, my religion is providing for the situation, we always can find new rituals.
Right. Now, clearly, this is it's not an easy job that you do, and it's a very tough, situation. I'm sure you find yourself in when you have to have these conversations and do this level of thinking and research. Um, do you find that there are now newer theories or newer techniques which you think are going to be available to people to deal with loss, whether it is through death or because of disappearance?
I don't think so much that it's technique. I think it's much more to empower people that they are willing to be on the side of people. Yeah. So what I said before, what I learned all over the place is if people are very much in need, then we feel also so helpless, and then we tend to go away because it's very uncomfortable, or we have the feeling whatever we say, nothing can really help. And it's true. Nothing really can help in such a situation. But there's quite a contradiction in the process. Because on one side, nothing in the world can bring back what is lost. But on the other side, mourners are very, very grateful to any assistance and help they can get from other people. So I think it's not so much technique. I think it's much more being on the side of the people. And I put together in my book some ideas from all over the world what can be done. Can be done with individuals, with communities, with families.
Right. Well, Dr. Preitler, thank you for joining us and sharing some of these insights and nuances in what is clearly a very difficult subject in our lives. And one can only hope and pray that people who have to go through this find the strength to deal with it, and people don't have to go through the bad experience of disappearance of loved ones. Or so, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope you can continue to do all the good work and research and your teaching that you do.
Thank you also very much, and my best wishes from Europe to India. All the best.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.